The storm's gift. The meteor shower hit Dust Ridge like clockwork every 73 days, turning the night sky into cascading silver fire. Jace Corrigan barely noticed anymore. He'd been stationed on this forsaken mining moon for 2 years, fixing salvage equipment and keeping his head down. The solitude suited him. Out here, nobody asked questions about what you were running from. He was sealing a hydraulic line on an old cargo hauler when he heard the crash, different from the usual impacts, heavier, closer. The sound came from just beyond his hab unit, where nothing should have landed except rock and ice. Jace grabbed his plasma cutter, more habit than bravery, and stepped into the swirling dust. The meteor shower painted everything in stuttering light. At first, he thought the crumpled shape near his door was debris, twisted metal from some unlucky freighter. Then it moved. She lifted her head, and even through the dust, he saw her eyes, dark and deep, reflecting the meteor fire like twin stars. Her body was lean and strong, wrapped in tactical gear that looked melted in places, revealing skin marked with faint, fading patterns of light, like bioluminescent veins slowly dying. "Please." Her voice was rough, accented in ways he'd never heard. "Let me rest beside you." Before he could respond, she collapsed completely. Jace's instincts screamed at him to back away, to call the outpost security, to do anything except what he did next. But those eyes haunted him, exhausted, desperate, but somehow proud even in defeat. He dropped the plasma cutter and slid his arms beneath her, surprised by her weight, by how real she felt. Getting her inside took all his strength. He laid her on his bunk, the only soft surface in the cramped space, and stood back, breathing hard. In the harsh light of his hab unit, he could see her more clearly now. She was tall, her features angular and striking, beautiful in a way that made his chest tighten. The gear she wore was military, but marked with symbols he didn't recognize. Blood, dark purple, almost black, seeped from wounds across her ribs and shoulder. Whatever she'd been through, it was bad. Jace had basic medical training, enough to keep miners alive until real help arrived. He pulled out his emergency kit and approached carefully, half expecting her to wake and attack. She didn't stir as he cut away the damaged sections of her gear, revealing more of those luminous patterns beneath her skin, pulsing weakly with her heartbeat. He worked quickly, cleaning wounds, applying synth skin patches, injecting broad-spectrum antibiotics that he hoped would work on her alien physiology. Her breathing steadied, deepened. The patterns on her skin brightened slightly, a good sign, he thought. When he finished, Jace pulled a chair beside the bunk and simply watched her. She was the first living being besides himself that he'd spoken to in 3 months. The silence of Dust Ridge had become his armor, his punishment, his peace. Now this stranger had crashed through it all. Outside, the meteor shower continued its ancient dance. Inside, Jace realized his hands were shaking, not from fear, but from something else entirely. Something he'd thought he'd buried with everyone he'd lost. She murmured something in her sleep, a word in a language like distant thunder and wind through canyons. Her face softened, vulnerable in a way that made him look away, feeling like an intruder. He should report this. Should call it in. Should do 100 things that weren't sitting here in the dark, listening to her breathe, feeling more alive than he had in years. The night stretched on, and Jace didn't move from that chair. Awakening trust. Valine woke to unfamiliar sounds, the hum of recycled air, the distant ping of cooling metal, the soft breathing of someone nearby. Her combat instincts flared immediately. She sat up fast, reaching for weapons that weren't there, and pain exploded through her torso. "Easy, easy." The human male jumped from his chair, hands raised. "You're safe. You're injured." Valine's vision swam, but her training kept her focused. She assessed him quickly, average height, lean build, calloused hands, no visible weapons. His eyes were cautious but not cruel. The small room held basic equipment, salvage tools, nothing military. Her gear lay folded nearby, cleaned. "Where am I?" Her voice scraped like rust. "Dust Ridge. Mining outpost, middle of nowhere." He moved slowly toward a small counter, poured water into a cup. "You crashed outside my door 3 days ago." 3 days. Valine's stomach dropped. They could have tracked her by now. Her hand went instinctively to her neck, feeling for her signal beacon. Gone. She looked at him sharply. I removed it, Jace said quietly, reading her panic. Crushed it. Figured if you were running, you had a reason. He offered the water. She took it, studying him. Why would you do that? Because I know what it's like to run. He settled back into his chair, maintaining distance. I'm Jace. Jace Corrigan. Valine Sharnine. The water felt like salvation down her throat. Kethrai Forward Scout, 3rd Nomadic Fleet. She paused. Former Scout. Over the next hour, the story came out in fragments. Valine spoke haltingly about the colony, innocent farmers who'd refused to vacate resource-rich land. Her orders had been clear: eliminate resistance. But when she'd seen the children, something inside her had broken. She'd fired on her own squadron instead, buying the colonists time to evacuate, then fled into the void. They'll never stop hunting me, she finished, her voice flat. Desertion during combat engagement. Among my people, there's no great additioner. Jace listened without judgment, and that somehow made it harder. When she finished, he told his own story: the corporation wars, the mining vessel where he'd worked as chief engineer, the accident that wasn't an accident. 23 people dead because someone wanted to cut costs. He'd testified, blown the whistle, watched executives walk free while his name became poison. So I came here, he said simply. Where nobody cares who you used to be. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of two people who understood that some wounds never fully healed. Days blurred together after that. Valine's strength returned gradually. The luminous patterns beneath her skin brightened, and Jace found himself fascinated by them, swirling constellations that shifted with her moods. She caught him staring once, and instead of anger, something almost like shyness crossed her face. She insisted on helping despite her injuries. Her tactical mind adapted quickly to his salvage work, seeing solutions he'd missed. They developed a rhythm, working side by side in comfortable quiet, sharing meals from his limited supplies, talking late into the artificial nights about everything except what came next. One evening, as Jace repaired a circuit board, Valine sat cross-legged on the floor, practicing words from his language. Lonely, she said carefully. What does this mean? It means being alone, but wishing you weren't. She was quiet for a long moment. In Kethrai, we have no word for this. We say unwitnessed, to exist without others seeing you truly. Her eyes met his. I think I understand it now. I was unwitnessed, even among my own people. Until I crashed here. Jace's hand stilled on his work. I see you, Valine. I know. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. That's what frightens me. The twin moons of Dust Ridge rose beyond the viewport, casting silver light across the cramped space. Neither of them moved, but something fundamental had shifted between them, a recognition that what was growing here was dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with her pursuers. Beneath the surface. The storm system moved in on the 14th day, the kind that forced even the automated mining rigs to shut down. Jace secured the hab unit while Valine watched the approaching wall of dust and lightning with something like reverence. On my homeworld, storms are sacred, she said softly. They're called the breath of the ancients. We believe they carry the voices of those who came before. Jace joined her at the viewport. Standing close now felt natural, inevitable. What do they say? That some bonds transcend the boundaries we build. She turned to face him, and the patterns beneath her skin pulsed brighter. That honor isn't always found in following orders. The storm hit with full force, rattling the walls, plunging them into emergency lighting. The confined space suddenly felt smaller, more intimate. Jace had set up a small heating unit near the bunk, and they gravitated toward it instinctively, sitting close on the warm blankets. Tell me something true, Valine said, her shoulder brushing his. Something you've never told anyone. Jace thought for a long moment. I stopped believing I deserved to be happy. After the accident, after everyone died, I convinced myself that exile was what I earned. That feeling anything good was a betrayal. Her hand found his in the dim light, fingers intertwining with a certainty that stole his breath. And now? Now I think maybe I was just waiting. He turned to look at her, seeing how the emergency lights caught in her dark eyes. For someone to remind me what it feels like to be alive. Valine's free hand rose to his face, tracing his jawline with a gentleness that contradicted everything he knew about her warrior nature. I was taught that emotions make you weak. That attachment is the enemy of duty. Her thumb brushed his lower lip. But with you, I feel stronger than I ever did following orders. The kiss, when it came, was inevitable as the storm outside, gentle at first, tentative, then deepening with all the loneliness and longing they'd both carried for so long. Jace pulled her closer, feeling the warmth of her body, the steady beat of her heart against his chest. The patterns on her skin blazed bright, casting dancing shadows across the walls. "Are you sure?" he whispered against her lips. Her answer was to kiss him again, harder this time, her hands sliding beneath his shirt, mapping the contours of his body with careful exploration. They undressed slowly, savoring each revelation, each touch a promise and a question answered simultaneously. Retry you. The price of worlds. The rift's heart loomed like a wound in existence. Reality simply stopped at its edges, colors bleeding from the tear that shouldn't exist. Soren's implants screamed warnings as spatial geometry violated every principle he knew. "This is as close as anyone's gotten and survived," Eliana said, her voice tight. They stood on a platform of crystallized energy, the only solid surface for miles. "I can see the anchor points," Soren said. 2 days of study had revealed the truth. The rift isn't just a tear. Your ancestors tried to merge dimensions. When it failed, it left this spreading wound. Can you close it? Yes. But not how the prophecy suggested. He took her hands. I don't need to trap my consciousness between dimensions. I need to become a stable bridge instead of a chaotic tear. My implants can rewrite my consciousness at the quantum level. If I synchronize them with your bloodline connection, we create a stable pathway. The energy required would tear you apart. It might. Or it might transform me into something that can exist across boundaries while maintaining coherent consciousness. He smiled despite her terror. I'll be changed, but I'll still be me. And I'll still be with you. Tears streamed down her face. You're asking me to help you do something that could kill you because if we don't try, your world dies. And because you trust me, he pressed his forehead to hers. This is the only way that doesn't end with me trapped forever. This way, we have a chance. What do you need? Channel your bloodline connection into me. Anchor me to this dimension while my implants anchor to between space. The resonance becomes the bridge. That will link us permanently. Our consciousnesses entwined at quantum level. Is that a problem? She laughed despite everything. No. Maybe that's what prophecy really meant. Not sacrifice, but choosing to become something new together. Then let's rewrite prophecy. Soren activated his implants, vision exploding with dimensional frequencies and quantum probabilities. When I signal, channel everything. Don't hold back. Eliana moved into position, robes glowing as she drew on her power. Golden threads linked her to her world's dimensional foundation. I love you, she said. Whatever happens. I love you too. Soren walked toward the rift. Now let's save your world. He stepped where reality ended, and agony tore through him. His implants interfaced with between space, processing geometries human minds weren't designed for. He saw everything, all dimensions simultaneously, all timelines, infinite complexity. His body destabilized, matter losing coherence. He was dissolving. Now, he screamed. Eliana's power slammed into him, golden energy flooding through him. Her consciousness touched his, and suddenly he wasn't alone. She was there, anchoring him, reminding him why. Together, they reached for the rift's cord. The resonance rippled outward. The tear began closing, reality knitting back together. But the process demanded transformation. Soren's consciousness split, expanded, became something neither human nor anything else. His body dissolved into light, reformed, dissolved again as it struggled to exist across dimensional states. Pain beyond physical tore through him, existence being rewritten. Eliana's voice anchored him through chaos. Stay with me, she commanded with royal authority and desperate love. Soren Vex, I command you to stay. Find your way back. Find me, her words became his compass. Even as consciousness stretched across impossible spaces, her voice remained his anchor. The bridge stabilized, using him as foundation, but transforming him instead of trapping him. He became something new. A consciousness existing simultaneously in multiple states, held together by quantum entanglement with Ileana and powered by his implants processing impossible mathematics. The rift sealed with a sound like the universe sighing. Reality rushed back, and Soren stood on the platform again, but changed. He could see in new ways: dimensional frequencies, quantum probabilities, reality's underlying structure. He existed here fully, but part of him also existed in between space. Aware of the sealed rift he now maintained effortlessly, Ileana collapsed, and Soren caught her. His hands felt solid, real, but his body flickered, solid, translucent, solid, as if uncertain which state to maintain. Did it work? She gasped. Are you still you? I'm still me, Soren said, his voice carrying harmonics now. But also more. I can feel the rift, it's part of me now. Stable, sealed. And I can feel you, our connection. You're part of my consciousness. Tears and smiles mixed on her face. I feel it too. I sense you across dimensional boundaries. She touched his face, her hand passing through, then finding solid contact. You're flickering. I'm learning to control it. He concentrated, stabilizing. Existing across dimensions means I choose which state to manifest. It's like navigating existence itself. You did it. You found the impossible route. We did it. He helped her up, holding her close. I couldn't survive without you anchoring me. Now we're connected in ways I don't fully understand. But I'm here. With you. I can exist in your world while maintaining the bridge. Ileana wrapped arms around him, sobbing with relief. Take me home. Soren activated his new abilities, and the world shifted. Dimensional travel came naturally now. In seconds, they stood in palace gardens where they'd first kissed. The city had stopped flickering. Reality remained stable. The consumption had ended. They'd saved her world and become something unprecedented. Two souls bound across dimensions, their love woven into reality's fabric. What happens now? Ileana asked. Now we figure out what it means to exist like this. To love like this. He kissed her forehead. To build a future together sounds complicated. Worth it though. Soren smiled. You're worth every impossible complication. Love across dimensions. 3 months after sealing the rift, Soren stood in the palace council chamber, his form flickering between solid and translucent as he demonstrated his new abilities. The Lumini advisors watched with mixture of awe and lingering suspicion. The stability readings are unprecedented, Chief Scientist Varen reported, holographic data floating around him. Not only has the primary rift sealed, but the 17 secondary tears across the outer colonies have also stabilized. Navigator Vex Quantum Bridge is actually healing dimensional damage we thought permanent. Because I can perceive the between space directly now, Soren explained, his voice carrying those strange harmonics. I don't just seal rifts, I can navigate to them, understand their structure, and stabilize them from within. It's like having a map to spaces that shouldn't be mappable. Counselor Theris, eldest of the advisors, leaned forward. And the cost? You flicker between states constantly. Are you still human, navigator? Or have you become something else entirely? Ileana's hand found Soren's, her touch helping him stabilize. Their quantum entanglement meant her presence anchored him, made maintaining solid form easier. I'm both, Soren said simply. Human enough to love, to choose, to feel. But also changed enough to exist where humans couldn't before. I'm learning to control the transitions. Watch. He concentrated, and his form became fully solid, indistinguishable from any human. Then he shifted, becoming translucent enough to see through. Then shifted again, and suddenly he stood in 2 places simultaneously, beside Ileana and across the room near the window, before resolving back to single solid form. Dimensional navigation applied to my own existence, he explained. I can be where I need to be, exist in whatever state serves best. It's exhausting sometimes, and I'm still learning limits. But I'm here. I'm real. And I'm not going anywhere. The question before council, Theris continued, is succession. Princess Ileana, you are last of royal bloodline. Your people need assurance of stability, of future leadership. Yet you've bound yourself at quantum level to an otherworlder who exists partially between dimensions. What happens if you bear heirs? What will they be? Ileana stood, her voice carrying royal authority. What they will be is loved. As for what they might become, who can say? Perhaps they'll inherit traits from both dimensions. Perhaps they'll be fully lumini. Perhaps something unprecedented. She squeezed Soren's hand. But I chose this bond knowing the uncertainties. I chose love over political convenience. And I will not apologize for that choice. We're not asking you to apologize, Counselor Myra said gently. We're asking you to consider officially bonding. To make Navigator Vex your consort in truth, not just in quantum entanglement. To show your people that their princess has found not just a savior, but a partner. Soren felt Ileana's surprise through their connection, followed by warm hope. They'd discussed this privately but hadn't expected council approval so soon. You would accept this? Ileana asked carefully. An otherworlder who exists across dimensions as royal consort. He saved our civilization, Varen said bluntly. He continues saving it, healing rifts across all territories. He loves you in ways visible to anyone with eyes. And frankly, the quantum bond you share is stronger than any marriage ceremony we could perform. We're simply asking you to make official what already exists. Varys nodded. The people need symbols of hope, Princess. You and Navigator Vex represent something new, proof that reaching across impossible distances, whether dimensional or emotional, can save worlds. Let them celebrate that. Ileana looked at Soren, and through their bond he felt her question, her hope, her love. He smiled, squeezing her hand. Yes, he said simply. If you'll have me. A navigator who exists between dimensions, who flickers at inconvenient moments, who still doesn't fully understand your political system or half your cultural traditions. I'll have you, Ileana said, her harmonized voice warm. My impossible navigator who crossed dimensions and rewrote existence itself rather than leave me. The council chamber erupted in rare applause. The bonding ceremony took place under twin moons in the palace gardens where they'd first kissed. Thousands gathered to witness, and millions more watched through dimensional broadcasts. Soren wore ceremonial robes that Ileana had designed, fabric woven with quantum-stabilizing threads that helped him maintain solid form. You're nervous, Ileana whispered as they stood before the High Curator who would officiate. She looked radiant in traditional bonding robes that shifted colors with her emotions, currently blazing gold and silver. I'm marrying a princess in front of millions while existing partially between dimensions, Soren whispered back. Nervous seems appropriate. She laughed, the sound making flowers around them brighten. Just focus on me. Everything else is just ceremony. The High Curator began the traditional words, speaking of bonds that transcend distance, of love that bridges impossible spaces. The phrases took on new meaning given their circumstances. When it came time for vows, Ileana spoke first. I, Ileana Veralis, last heir of the Lumini dynasty, choose you, Soren Vex, as my bonded partner across all dimensions. You came from impossible distance, sacrificed your very existence to save my world, and transformed yourself rather than leave me. I vow to be your anchor as you are mine, to love you in whatever form you take, to face whatever futures we create together. Soren's turn. His voice carried harmonics now, words resonating across dimensions. I, Soren Vex, navigator of impossible spaces, choose you, Ileana Veralis, as my partner across all realities. You gave me something I'd never had, home. Not a place, but a person worth transforming for, worth existing across dimensions for. I vow to protect your world, to love you in whatever forms we become, to navigate whatever impossible routes our future requires. The High Curator placed their hands together, and energy flared, their quantum entanglement made visible, golden threads of Ileana's bloodline weaving through silver threads of Soren's dimensional connection, creating patterns that existed across multiple realities simultaneously. What was separate is now joined, the Curator declared. What was isolated is now connected. What was impossible is now proven real. I declare you bonded across all dimensions, partners in existence itself. They kissed, and the gardens exploded with light, flowers blazing, crystals singing, the air itself seeming to celebrate. Through their bond, Soren felt Ileana's joy, her love, her certainty that they'd chosen right. When they finally broke apart, cheers erupted from the crowd. "Well," Soren said, grinning. "That's official then." "Very official." Ileana smiled up at him. "You're stuck with me now, across all dimensions. Best navigation decision I ever made." 6 months later, Soren stood at the Dimensional Observatory, monitoring rift activity across explored space. His abilities had expanded. He could now perceive tears forming before they manifested, travel instantaneously to stabilize them, even open controlled passages between dimensions. "You're doing it again," Ileana said, entering the observatory. Her robes had started showing the subtle glow that indicated early pregnancy. They discovered it 2 weeks ago. Their child would be unprecedented, carrying genetics from both dimensions. Doing what? Existing in 3 places simultaneously while analyzing.